All right, today is Monday, July 20th, and today I thought I would start describing how my childhood went. So I was born in 1979 with a twin sister. I had a brother who's 11 years older than me. He recently passed in November at the age of 58, which is still terrifying and crazy in a way I can't think about. But going back, a lot of my early childhood is I don't really have very many memories of. My father was an alcoholic and he was a salesman. I remember him traveling a lot when I was younger, but when he was home, I also remember how difficult things could be. So my bedroom was next to the family room on the second floor of this colonial we lived in, and every night he would be in there watching TV or working on one of his models. He would be drinking scotch, and my mom would be in there with him. And inevitably, before I fell asleep sometimes, as I was trying to go to sleep, he would start yelling at my mom, calling her all kinds of names, screaming, fighting, just pissing, moaning, being as verbally abusive as possible. And at a really loud volume. So that's how I went to bed as a kid. Needless to say, it was helpful to be sharing a room with my sister at the time. And my grandmother used to come in and lay down with us until we fell asleep, which I think, without it, I probably would have been up a lot later and probably heard even more that I didn't want to. Day to day with him was avoiding him. He worked in a little office in the attic. He would get up late. He would immediately start drinking. He would get up at like 11 a.m. and he would go up to his office and would work in his office and drink in his office, and then he would kind of come down. He maybe did 4 hours of work a day most of the time at best, and then spent the rest of the time basically drinking or lording over the house and making sure things weren't too loud or upsetting. Like my kids, if I threw the video on an average day, my kids cause an amount of noise and chaos that is frankly unreal for the size of them. I never got to do that. I remember getting yelled at one year because it was Christmas Eve and I was excited and I was upstairs and I came running down the stairs to the first floor. And me running and being excited got me yelled at by my father. Me laying on a couch and turning the overhead light off because I would get migraines used to get me made fun of by my father. He hung out with a lot of different types of people. He used to go to a bar called McMino's in Haverhill, and if you don't know what McMino's was, it was a trailer up on 110 by Necco. It's a trail. It used to be a trailer, and it was a bar, and it was the kind of bar where the people you met there weren't people that you would normally see anywhere else. I mean, I'm talking Hell's Angels. I'm talking, shady types of all varieties. My father used to know a guy who used to sell coke. My father used coke in the 70s, although I only found out about that later. Probably in the 80s too, but I was too small to notice, and I'm sure by then my mom had figured out how to kind of hide it away. So needless to say, as I got older, I was a very quiet kid. I used to hide, and I would hide because it was a big colonial. There were 2 staircases. There was like this main grand staircase, and then there was the back staircase that I guess in 1900 the servants would have used, right? There's a landing most of the way up it. I used to sit on that landing in the dark and either read books or just basically hide out when things got crazy. And that sucked. Because it was me avoiding every terrible thing you could imagine. let's see. Going forward, I was in 8th grade. My father convinced me to play Pop Warner football, which I did like. However, one of the days that I came home from Pop Warner football, I was sitting in my bedroom. Which was again right next to the family room, and across the hall, down the hall a little bit was my older brother's room. My older brother was whatever he was, 20 and living at home, or 22 and living at home. I don't know. He had his girlfriend there, and for whatever reason, my dad had hair across his ass about something with Dave or the girl. I have no idea really. What I saw was my father banging on his door, Dave getting into an argument with him, my father kicking at him or taking making some move towards him, like he tried to kick him in the nuts, he tried to do something. And the next thing I know, my brother is on top of my father. They're both on the ground, and my brother is pummeling him. Now, I saw it all. My sister didn't, thankfully. But I saw as much as you could see before my mother realized that I was standing in my doorway watching it and shunted me away to, look at anything else, right? It wasn't the only time I saw my brother get in a fight. A year before or a year after 4th of July, we were at our neighbor's house who lived across the street from us, and they had a pool. They used to shoot fireworks, and my dad and his dad were friends, and I was friends with their son, who's a year younger than me, named Matt. Well, I was hanging out with Matt on the 4th of July. We were just goofing around in the house. There were a bunch of people there. And we looked out on the deck, which was on the 2nd floor, and my brother was in a fist fight with Matt's father and getting his ass kicked. Thankfully, that was broken up, and we were again shunted away before we could see any more too horrible stuff, right? Okay. So, all that happens. Then, fast forward to Christmas, or maybe not Christmas, near Christmas. And my brother had gotten into some kind of dispute with my father. He had moved up into the attic, so you're staying in the bedroom in the attic, and he went up to the attic, and he punched his fist through a glass pane window, split, ripped a tendon in his hand, big scar, blah, 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 right? So, you can see so far what kind of a peaceful coexistence I existed in. As I get older, I got angrier and angrier, and as I kind of became bigger and more sick of it all, I started to react. But that's a story for next time, because it appears my dog needs something. But one more detail about my brother. I love my brother. I really did. And he tried at times when I was a kid to step in and be the pseudo-father figure. But he also had no patience. He also had the temper of my father while viewing himself as vastly different. For example, once we got into an argument when I was like 12, and this 23-year-old shoved me to the ground and sent me flying. Another time, he was helping me work on, hitting the ball for Little League, and he was throwing hard, and I was a little bit skittish about it, and he lost his shit on me and refused to help me anymore. So, and at the same time, he also claimed he wanted to be a fighter pilot, wanted to join the military, but didn't because he wanted to make sure that we were okay. Now, one might get the impression that my brother was part of the problem. And that's not totally true. My father was the problem at that point. My brother was just another 20-something trying to make his way in a world where his father had grown up telling him he was a piece of shit all the time. I didn't get as much of that. What I got was expectations, because I was the smart kid. So anytime I didn't get all A's, and I mean all A's, I mean like I got a B or a B plus, and I would be getting screamed at. Basically, I couldn't win. I could either be the best in the class at it, or I would be yelled at, possibly punished. Either way, or I shouldn't have shut up about how I'm wasting my potential and all this other bullshit, right? And that went on until I was about 17, and I got a C and C plus, and I want to say Spanish maybe, and got the report card, came home, showed it to them. Got called into my parents' room. I was sitting there. My mom was in there. My dad comes in. He starts yelling at me. And then he starts getting in my face. And by that point in my life, I remembered what happened with my brother. And I had a plan. When he got into my face, I jumped up and I said, "Go right ahead. I fucking dare you to hit me. Go ahead." And I meant it. One, because I had been lifting weights, and honestly, my father was kind of a lazy slob, and I probably could hit him harder than he could have hit me. And two, I wanted to have him arrested because I wanted him out of the house. I wanted him away from my sister, and I wanted him away from my mom. He once put his hand around my sister's throat and put her against the wall. She called the cops, and of course my parents managed to kill it before anything ever came of it. But that's the kind of man we're dealing with. He, again, coke user, alcoholic, abusive, at least verbally. I don't doubt at some point he very well may have struck my mother. He cheated on her all the time when he traveled because he was a salesman. And, well, he also didn't pay taxes for years because somewhere along the line he had a 1099 that had a digit off and a social security number. So what he decided to do was just treat that like it didn't fucking happen. Take the money and wait and hope nothing happened. And eventually it did. After he died, he left my mom with a comically high tax bill. I'm talking a couple $100,000. Basically killed the equity in the house when my mom sold it. Nice guy, huh? And this motherfucker. I have one memory of spending time alone with him that wasn't unpleasant, and it was only because he didn't want to go to my cousin's graduation any more than 10-year-old me did. So we spent a little time at a park, and then we went home. Other than that, he did what he needed to do for us. Like, he provided, we ate, we went to school. I went to a Catholic school. So, he did do some things right, but he was a nightmare to live with, and every moment in that house was tense. And, well, that's the situation I found myself in when he got sick. He got sick when I was in the beginning of my second year in law school. It was in November. My mother had been reducing his alcohol intake by watering down some of his drinks. It may have had something to do with that, or it might have been completely unrelated. Either way, pretty quickly he was at Holy Family Hospital on a ventilator, almost died. Then he didn't. Then he went to a hospital in Boston. Now, I went to see him at Holy Family. He was in Boston for months. My mom used to go in there every day. I went to see him once because I had to be in Boston because I had to buy books for my second semester in law school. Other than that, I didn't go visit him. Why? Because I didn't fucking care about him. Because it was more peaceful for him to be gone. I talked with my mother about it afterwards, and she said that She didn't divorce him because she was scared what he would do with us. And back then, that was probably a much more real fear than it had to be. And I wish she had done it, but I understand it. She made the best decision she could at the time. She was being abused and belittled constantly, and the fact that she didn't have the confidence to do what needed to be done is not a fucking surprise. And I don't blame her, and I don't hold that against her. My mom had a tough go with things, but she had a lot happen. When I was in first grade, she fell down the stairs at the elementary school in Lawrence. She got taught at metal stairs. She broke her collarbone, concussion. She was in bed for weeks. Thankfully, my grandmother was there to manage the day-to-day of taking care of us, but it also meant my grandmother had to drive us home from school once, which I will, to this day, say was the scariest 5-minute car ride I've ever been in my life. When I was a teenager, my mom had breast cancer. She had her hair fall out. She had her, body betraying her. And, she had spent all her time since breaking the collarbone. She had been in the gym. She had been training. She had gotten strong. She was legit strong. She's the reason I started going to the gym. And then she got through cancer, and she had a few more years of dealing with my fucking father. And then my father got sick, and she was a dedicated wife. She tried to help keep his business running with some of his fucking associates from the sales world who, one guy helped a little bit, but let's be real, I had met most of those people when I was old enough by then to recognize a shitbag when I saw one. So the help dried up quickly, as you might guess, and the business went away. Now, when he died, she was extremely depressed. She moved down to Virginia because her sister and her sister's husband lived down there, and she decided to teach one more year in the school with her sister. They had a great time. That was also the year of the DC Sniper, so I can't say it was stress-free, but it went okay. And then her sister was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and nearly died on the operating table. So for the next several years, my mom stayed in Virginia, cared for her sister. Her sister's husband, my Uncle Mike, was a retired Marine Corps general, judge advocate general, and was legal counsel for NASA and was on the board of trustees at Navy Federal Credit Union. I mean, the guy is the guy who should run for president if you could avoid exposing your entire life to the kind of overwhelming hell that it requires. I guess he thought about it at one point, but I agree with him. It wouldn't have been worth it. So eventually my aunt passed. I had already had Ryan. Now, when Ryan was born, my oldest, my mom and my aunt jumped on a plane. He was born at 5 in the morning. I think they were there by 2. They jumped on a plane, came straight to the hospital. And my aunt, sick as she was, came because she knew it was the only time she would likely ever see Ryan, ever. And he was the first grandchild. So, shortly after that, my aunt died. And then my sister found out she was having a child, and my mom moved back up here. Now, she had bought a condo, but she had rented that out, so then she went and stayed with my sister, and was with my sister for years. Brendan was born in 2013. My first marriage ended in January of 2014. And suddenly, I was also staying at my sister's. So now you have me, sometimes my 3-year-old son, a newborn baby, and my mother, my sister, and her husband all in the house. I am forever grateful that Tim and Alicia let us stay there and gave us a place that was comfortable and safe. I was grateful for the fact that my mother was trying to be helpful, but by that point I was 35, and really nobody wants their mother lingering over them, making sure they're okay, when when all you just want to do is just stop thinking about work and scream into a pillow for a while. But yeah, that happened. Well, eventually I moved in with my brother because he got divorced. His wife left him about a month after I got divorced, and I wanted to sell my house. He wanted to keep his. Now, we did look at apartments because he and his wife were in a pissing contest. They both wanted to save the house. Now, she couldn't afford it, neither could he. He looked at an apartment with me at Railcrest, was depressed, was talking about how much he wanted to keep the house. He didn't want to get divorced. I was perfectly fine with my first marriage. I think my brother really loved his ex-wife and didn't want to get divorced, and the man needed a win. So foolish me, I committed to it, and I committed to helping him buy her out, to living there with my son, which worked great for a few years. So, but there were some complications there, as you might guess. But that's enough for today. So, I don't know. Another story for another day, maybe. But, a tiny bit more about my lovely childhood. See you next time.